The Ashes of the Dam story is an interesting one. From so much that we've already explored, the radios, the conversations, the quotes, but now I want to focus on the big one. And these are the cutscenes. Obviously the ending cutscene, but also that midway through cutscene that we get during the Easter egg, because my gosh, is there a lot of things to dive into, and I don't think anybody's really done justice to everything that could really be talked about in both of these cutscenes, mainly the ending one. So today I'm going to be doing that for you guys. But with videos like this, story videos, there's always a fun discussion that can be had here. So head down to the comments, let me know your ideas, theories, or even maybe where I made mistakes somewhere in this video. And hey, while you're down there, I appreciate if you guys could support the channel in any way, shape, or form. Drop a like, subscribe, bell, share, any of that great stuff. But with that said, let's talk about the ending cutscene to Ashes of the Damned. Now, I know we want to get into that very ending cutscene, but we have to talk about that midway through cutscene because it's important for that context to get into the ending cutscene. Now, the first thing I want to talk about with this cutscene is how it even starts, because what we're doing is interacting with this thing called the Seal of Sorow, and we use the 3 keys to unlock it. And then when we do unlock it, we unlock someone, and this is the entity, and more on the entity in a little bit. But my question is that why was the entity locked inside of it, or at least locked away from us using that? I don't know if she was actually inside it or if she was just getting blocked using it. Regardless, it was blocking her in one way, shape, or form. And the question is, why and who did that? I mean, more than likely it's the warden who locked the entity away from us, but the question is why? What kind of history do they have? And if that history exists there, like, what's going on there? I mean, we don't know the answers to that, but I'm kind of interested to see exactly what's the story behind that. Now, on the other hand, we have the entity, and the question is, who is the entity? And believe it or not, this is actually not a new character, and this is a returning character from Modern Warfare Zombies of all places. Now, what's actually funny about that is that in Modern Warfare Zombies, she was like the main villain in all of that. She was the one we're fighting the whole time until the final DLC, or I guess update for it, and we had a crazy boss fight against her, which was actually an insane boss fight. It was actually really good, but regardless, when we did fight her, we ended up defeating her, killing her, and that was that. But that's not all she was. She just wasn't a villain, because it's also revealed that she was kind of the sister of Ava Jansen. And now, we do have to talk about the story of Ava Jansen. It's always so weird to talk about, but who's Ava Jansen? Well, she is actually the biological daughter of Samantha Maxis and Ravnov. And no, they didn't have a kid together, but what happened was that Richtofen harvested the eggs from Samantha and the sperm from Ravnov, and he put them together, and then actually from there he put them in Gray, which hasn't happened yet, obviously, and then Gray eventually has Ava Jansen, but then she's put up for adoption. She's adopted by a British family, and that's why she has a British accent. Now, that's a whole weird story on its own, but regardless, though, apparently what happened alongside that, because she is the daughter of Maxis, and Maxis has those Dark Ether powers, she actually had another daughter in the Dark Ether at the exact same time. And that's exactly who the entity is. She's also technically the daughter of Samantha Maxis. So that's who we're talking about here, and potentially she has a lot of powers, because not only is she the daughter of Samantha Maxis, but on top of that, she was born in the Dark Ether and has been there for a while, so she's somewhat powerful. It's never really clear how powerful, honestly. Now, as cool as that whole backstory is to all this, and I don't want to be that guy, but I mean, did the timeline actually work out here correctly? And I hate to point this out, but like, when our characters were sent into the Dark Ether, it was 1991, whereas Jansen and the entity were born in 1993, literally 2 years later. And I know you could talk about the time dilation between the Dark Ether and the regular universe, but that's not how it works, because time moves faster in the Dark Ether, not the regular universe. So even though our characters have been here for a while now, I mean, it's probably just been a couple hours. And if we're still assuming that the calculations from Cold War are still correct, time moves 10 times faster in the Dark Ether compared to the regular universe. So I don't really think that really makes up for it. So, I mean, again, not to be that guy, but like, that's not how the timeline works out. So how is she here? And on top of that, it seems like she's been here for a while, that she has a history with potentially the warden and all that. So like, I don't know how that works out, or maybe we're just lied to on who the entity was in Modern Warfare Zombies. I just don't know. But maybe there's an explanation here, maybe it's an alternate universe version, or anything else. There's a lot of different possibilities, but I mean, it just doesn't seem to match the current timeline as we know with the information that we do have. Regardless, though, I do want to get into the more important things, and this is actually where the entity actually explains why our characters were brought into this, why the Warden wanted their souls specifically. And it is revealed that when you interact with something powerful and has a strong connection to the Dark Ether, that bonds to your soul and makes it more valuable, at least to the Warden, and that's why he wants it. Now, obviously, it is something that we kind of known for a while, that this is because our characters in the Dark Ether story, the Requiem crew, is because they interacted with the Sentinel artifact, a very powerful device. But the question is, what is it for the other characters, our OG characters that are kind of returning except alternate versions? Well, we actually know the answer for Dempsey, and I have a full video on this if you guys want to check it out. I'll link it on screen right now. Check that out after you're done watching this one. But this actually has to do with the disciple injection and how it was used on him and stuff like that. Like, it's a really cool backstory. I recommend you guys check it out because it is so cool seeing stuff like that. But regardless, we don't know what it is for the other three characters. I do have a theory on Takeo, but that will be a separate video in the future. But then the final thing that is significant about this cutscene that the entity tells us is that in order to escape here, in order to escape the grasp of the Warden, we have to free the Shadowsmiths. And this is so interesting because the Shadowsmiths, if you guys didn't know, the first time they were ever mentioned is not a single time in Cold War, not a single time in Black Ops 6, but the very first time was in none other than, again, Modern Warfare Zombies. And actually who mentioned them was the entity again, which is interesting because when she mentioned them, she was warning us about them, but now we're supposed to help them? Which makes me question that what really are these Shadowsmiths going to do after everything is said and done, because it is very, very interesting now, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. But that is everything that we needed to talk about with that first cutscene to give us context of this ending cutscene. I know you guys are waiting for this, so let's talk about this ending cutscene. Now, obviously, in the boss fight, we are actually fighting one of the Shadowsmiths whose name is Vatron, I think that's how you pronounce it. And then after we defeat him, we actually see that we broke the bonds that the Warden put on him. And it seems like that is where a lot of the power of the Warden comes from, is that he was bonding all of these Shadowsmiths to him and then using their power. But when we defeat him, we break that bond. And as a reward, Vatron, this Shadowsmith, actually restores the souls of Dempsey and Maya. And they're no longer looking dead, and we could also see that a lot of their memories are restored, which if you guys haven't heard the conversations and even solo quotes, that you actually know that a lot of their memories are really cloudy, and it's because their souls were taken. But when they were restored, we see that Dempsey and Maya have their memories, and they have flashed a lot of things. Maya, a lot of familiar things that we all know about with Peck and her story with her brother and how he died and all of that. But then Dempsey, on the other hand, you see once again a lot of this stuff, like you see flashes of Vietnam, even Weaver. And once again, like I said, check out my video on the backstory of him because there's a really cool story on Dempsey. But regardless, though, we see that their memories and soul have been restored. But this is interesting because why did the Shadowsmith, why did Vatron have their souls? Well, again, it just seems like it's because the Warden has tied his power directly to these Shadowsmiths, and when he took it from them, he's still tied to them and obviously was holding some of their souls in one of these Shadowsmiths. And this pretty much tells us what we're going to be doing for the next 3 maps, because it's obvious that in this map, our very first one, we had the souls restored to 2 out of our 8 characters. And that means if we continue on this pace doing 2 characters per map, that in 3 maps time, we will interact with 3 other Shadowsmiths, free them, and restore the souls of all 8 of our characters. It's all but confirmed that Black Ops 7 is going to have 5 DLC maps. So this still means we have 2 more maps that are going to have nothing to do with collecting souls, so 2 huge mysteries waiting for us at the end. But kind of returning to what Vatron started saying, because he actually starts talking to us, and he actually gives us a bit more information of what the Shadowsmiths are.
A weaver of the fabric of this place, from the memories it contains. I have always been here. I am a Shadowsmith.
A weaver of the fabric of this place. From its memories it contains. I've always been here. My gosh, is that such a good quote. But first off, my gosh, is this guy just like super powerful? I mean, the weaver of the fabric of this place, like that sounds like some godlike powers. Well, we know it's not that strong because obviously he didn't create the entire Dark Ether. He's not the weaver of the entire Dark Ether himself, but instead there's multiple Shadowsmiths who have seemingly like their own areas that they weave, and it seems like the area that Vaethron is able to weave is actually this Ash the Damned area. But regardless, he seems really powerful, like super powerful. And my only question is, how in the hell did the Warden, a former cowboy from the south, how was he able to subdue and bond this guy? Like, what happened? Is he really just that much more powerful? And if he is, where did he get those powers? Or did he just trick them in some weird way? And how did he trick so many Shadowsmiths? Like, what is going on here? Because there is something up here, because I have no idea how this could all work, because I mean, we just don't know enough about the Warden yet, because we just don't know. We have a little backstory and we'll be making a video on that, but there's just a big question there. Now, the other part of that quote that I want to focus in on is from the memories that it contains. And I think the memories it contains is just anything in that area that has really ended up there. And I think this is obviously what we've seen there. The section of Ascension, the diner, farm, Janus Towers, and all the different points of interest. Like, that is what it's based on. And I'm kind of curious, because if he's the weaver of this place and the memories it contains, like, what does that really mean at the end of the day? I really am a bit confused by it, because these things, especially Janus Towers, that has, we at least thought recently, been teleported in here. So I'm kind of curious what that all means. But the final part is the most interesting one to me. And this is the point where he says, I have always been here. And the reason this is so significant is because the Dark Ether hasn't just been a thing since the start of this Dark Ether timeline. No, the Dark Ether has been a thing going all the way back to the OG Ether timeline. That was always a thing in that story too. It just, what happened is that at the end of the Ether timeline, Nikolai ends the multiverse and then sends all the corruption down to the Dark Ether that has been there the whole time. And my question is, what does he mean here? Does he just mean I've always been here since the reboot and that's what he's talking about ever since Nikolai sent everything down here? Or does he mean more literally he has always been there, going all the way back to the original Ether timeline? And the reason I point this out is because, I mean, he seems like a nice guy, but we just don't know that. But if we do just interpret this that it's just since the reboot, then it's fine, whatever. He could be a good guy, bad guy, or whatever. But if he means literally and he's been here since the very start of the Dark Ether, I don't think we should trust this guy, because keep in mind that the Dark Ether is the one who corrupted the very first keepers when they interacted with it. And when they interacted with it, they went on to become the Apothecans. So the Shadowsmiths, the ones that corrupted the very first keepers, and the Apothecans from the original timeline? And I mean, would it start to make sense that maybe the Shadow Man from that old timeline who was directing all of the Apothecans was just a Shadowsmith the whole time? I mean, potentially. I mean, obviously we don't think that's the case. I think there's a whole story that it might be something else entirely, but I mean, nothing's set in stone from that old timeline. So I mean, it's just kind of interesting that if he means literally that he's always been here, that would mean that he corrupted the very first keepers, made the Apothecans, and then, hey, it happens that there's something that is very similar to Shadowsmiths with Shadow Man also existing at the same time. I mean, it's just a little strange to me, so I don't know. I just don't know if we could trust him if he really means he's actually always been here. And I think there's reasons to believe that we shouldn't trust these Shadowsmiths, because time back to actually what I alluded to earlier in that Modern Warfare story, the entity in her final moments warns us about the Shadowsmiths. So potentially we may be freeing a greater evil by defeating the Warden. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But of course, there's a little bit more to this cutscene, and I want to get into that too, because here we actually see the entity say that she made a little pocket where we could hide from the Warden. And where this is most definitely the house. We've already seen this through the exfil. When you exfil, you see that you're going to the house, and that's where it seems like she's teleporting us to hide us from the Warden. And I think it'd be really cool with the intro cutscene to our next map if it starts off that we're in the house, so we can see it. That'd be cool to see the house again, and then from there we could teleport into the next map to go fight the next Shadowsmith. That would be pretty cool. But I am curious why the house though. Why? Is there some connection to it? Like, why? The only connection that we had before was through Janice Richtofen, who was Eddie from the original timeline, but we don't even know the fate of him, so why is it the house? Why is the entity choosing the house? I mean, she is the daughter of Max's, so maybe that has something to do with it. She was also in the house, so I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But the final thing in this cutscene that is interesting is that very final moment. And this is where the entity is teleporting everybody away, and the last one she teleports is Dempsey. But before he teleports, he does this.
Oh, shit.
Now, what is that reaction? Why would he say that? What is going on? He looks back and says, "Oh, you know, like, what is going on?" I mean, initially when I first watched it, I thought she was just going to leave him there by himself, so that's why I thought he was saying, but then he does get teleported. But then maybe he was the last one there, so he saw something. Maybe he saw the warden, seen him teleport or something like that. I mean, maybe, but I think it might be something else. And what I think is that Dempsey had his memories restored, and I think he remembered something. And I think Dempsey might be hiding stuff from the rest of our characters. And I'm so curious to see exactly what this was, because it's a small little detail, and I don't think it was there on accident. I think they are alluding to something that has to do with Dempsey, whether that's what he saw, or more likely something he remembered because his memories were restored. But I'd love to hear your guys' theories and ideas on what exactly that could be. And that's about it for the 2 cutscenes, but there's one final thing I want to mention because it is interesting, and I don't know if a lot of people have done this because I don't know how many people have beat this Easter egg, and if you beat the Easter egg, I don't know if you spawn back into the map. But if you actually spawn back into the map, it is very interesting because when you do, and you pick up a power-up, the announcer changes. The announcer changes from Vathron, the Shadowsmith that we just fought, into this other voice. It's seeming like a female voice. And to me, this is a direct teaser at the next Shadowsmith we're going to be fighting. And I'll just play a couple clips of that for you now. So yeah, I think we're fighting some female Shadowsmith in our next map, and honestly this is a really cool touch and a little teaser that I don't think a lot of people are picking up on. But regardless though, that is the cutscenes of Ashes of the Damned explained. I actually like a lot of what they're doing here. Only one weird thing that I thought was a bit strange, but everything else is so cool. There's a lot of things to theorize about from this and a lot of stuff to explain, but let me know all of your guys' thoughts, theories, and opinions about everything we talked about in this video. But until next time, I'm gonna catch you guys in the next one.